We're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you all so much for being here today, and also those of you who are watching online and our guests. We're going to have a great conversation today. My name is Shauna Sanford. This is GovTalks, and I have the pleasure of being the host of today's program. This program was created by the Governor's Office of Programs and Planning, which is headed up by Deputy Chief of Staff Johnny Anderson and his staff. They do a great job of putting this program together, and they've done so again today. It really does provide an opportunity for community advocates and leaders, such as those of you who are here today, to engage with experts and members of the governor's administration about issues and topics that are important to the governor and that are important to moving this state forward. And the goal here is to give you good, solid information that you can take back, share with your constituents, share with your communities, with your families, with your friends, to spread the good news on. And today we're focusing on the statewide services provided by the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs and the Office of Aging and Adult Services. There are thousands of folks across our state who rely on their services, and these folks do good work. Joining me today are Sharon Bookert and Teresa Broussard from Elderly Affairs, if you all would wave your hands so they could see you, and also Tara LeBlanc with Aging and Adult Services, and we have Daniel Birch here with us, who is our interpreter for today. So thank you all so very much for being here with us. We're looking forward to it. And I want to let you know that this is really an opportunity for you to get information. I know that you have questions, so we'll get started with a conversation, but the goal is to answer your questions. So please do not be shy. I heard you all talking beforehand. I know this is not a shy audience, so we want you to come up to the mic, introduce yourselves, and then ask your questions, and we'll go ahead and take those. But let's get the conversation started. Sharon, we'll start with you. Give us your title and sort of a brief overview of what it is that you do.
Sharon Bookert, and I am with the Governor's Office on Elderly Affairs, and I oversee LouisianaAnswers.com, the Aging and Disability Resource Centers, and Louisiana Senior Prescription Programs.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who utilize those services, right?
They're all statewide programs. We have offices covering the whole state, and they are local, so that you have someone who is aware of what is available in your part of the state.
And Teresa, we'll go with you as well because you're from that office. Tell us what you do.
I am the Compliance and Planning and Home and Community-Based Services Director, and what I do is I oversee both of those units. What those units do is to monitor the area agencies on aging and the councils on aging throughout the state.
Okay. And Tara, share a little bit about what it is that you do in your title as well.
Hi, I'm Tara LeBlanc, Assistant Secretary for Office of Aging and Adult Services. Our office is responsible for Medicaid services and some state-funded services for the aging population with onset disability and the elderly population. Some of the programs that we'll highlight is Community Choices Waiver, on the Adult Health Daycare Waiver. We have Permanent Supportive Housing Program. We also have Disaster Case Management for the awful floodings last year of March and August. And we also have some state-funded programs, traumatic head spinal cord injury, as well as state personal assistance program. At the front table, there was a brochure that looks like this that was handed out, as well as some fact sheets about all the programs. And if anyone in the audience or watching online, if you can just reach out, we will be glad to send you this documentation.
Is it possible that someone would need to utilize the services provided by both of your offices at the same time? And if so, do you all work together to coordinate? Tell us a little bit about that.
We do. We are more of a social model. They're more of a medical model, but we are a no wrong door, so that once you call the Aging and Disability Resource Center, which is connected to the Senior Prescription Program, we will lead you to the correct services. We'll help you even figure out. A lot of times things happen so fast in a family that you don't know where to go, and you don't even know really what you need. And so all of our counselors are AIRS certified, and that means that they have been certified to talk to people and to be able to listen and to repeat what they're hearing, to make sure that they are hearing them and help guide them to the correct question for the services that they need. And then we connect them with the services. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it is with our councils on aging and our area agencies on aging, and sometimes it is with Tara's waiver programs. Sometimes it is helping them fill out the forms for food stamps, Medicaid, all the things that all of a sudden you realize you need, but you're not sure how to get there.
Yeah, I like that. You said no wrong door policy. Is that right?
Absolutely. And even on the Louisiana Answers website, if you go along the top, it'll have applications. And some of the applications are there, so you can go ahead and fill them out and print them out and mail them in, and that'll get you a good head start,
So
too.
Tara, I imagine you get calls, this has happened to me, or this has happened to a loved one. What do I do?
Correct. When an individual calls in, some of the first questions we have, because our services mainly revolve around Medicaid services, we try to get the individual qualified for Medicaid, and that's our first starting point to see that where we can go from there. And if not, if they are deemed ineligible for Medicaid, then we reach out to the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs, through the Councils on Aging, through Senior RX. There's an abundance of resources out there that's not funded through Medicaid that individuals can get help.
And Teresa, how do you jump into that?
The Councils on Aging, they perform assessments on the seniors that would like to have services. And if there are some services that the Council on Aging either does not provide or maybe has a waiting list, they can then take that information and refer them to the Louisiana Health and Hospitals, and
Well, and that's important.
Services.
And that's important. I don't know if I mentioned this, but Tara, you're out of the Department of Health, right?
I am part of the Department of Health, one of the agencies under Louisiana Department of Health.
Right. And you mentioned waivers. Let's talk a little bit about waivers. I know that's a big, big concern for a lot of people and the issues that are around waivers. So how do you help explain the situation with waivers and the different waivers that are available?
Yeah, waivers is a comprehensive plan for individuals to be able to live in their home and community, or in their home and in the community, receiving an array of services. They're throughout the Department of Health. Not only does the Office of Aging have waivers, Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities also have waivers, and it just depends on what your medical or situation is that you, or disability that you have, is what waiver you do qualify for. There is a waiting list for the waivers, for the Office of Aging waivers, for our community choices and adult day health care waivers. There is a waiting list of approximately 30,000 individuals on there, and it's mainly due to funding. It's due to funding. But we also have a program that the majority of the people that are on the waiting list, it's called a state plan amendment program. It's long-term personal care services, which there's no waiting list. If you call, you qualify, you get services, and this is basically a PCA, or personal care attendant in your home to help you with activities of daily living.
Okay,
But you
and-
do have to qualify for Medicaid and qualify for that service.
Did you want to jump in and say something?
No, just saying that we work together on this, and that, if they don't have meals, she'll call us and we'll send the meals out to them through the Councils on Aging, the senior centers. And it's just a very tight relationship between all your state agencies. Like I said, even with the Department of Children and Family Services, and between us and between all the behavioral health unit, everybody is working together to try and get the right services to the right people so they can lead their best life, what they choose to be, their best life, in the manner that they want to choose to live it.
Right. I don't know if we were clear before, but can you tell us or help us to understand who can use your services? Or who are the folks that should call and seek help from your offices?
For the Office of Aging, is anyone above 18 that is Medicaid eligible for the Medicaid services, which is the long-term care personal services as well as the waiver services. And we do have 2 state-funded programs, the traumatic head spinal cord injury, which is not a Medicaid program, it's state-funded, and you have to have a spinal cord injury at some point in your lifetime. It had to happen in Louisiana. And then there's a state personal assistance program, which all programs have a waiting list just due to funding issues. But our office, mainly for under Department of Health, we mainly serve the Medicaid clients. And that's when we reach out to our sister agencies that can help us with the non-Medicaid population. And through the Office of Aging, and it's listed in the brochure, to get any Medicaid services, we have kind of a single point of entry. It's on the center, in the center opening. It's Louisiana Options in Long-Term Care. It's a 1-877-456-1146. And that's the entry point into getting most of our Medicaid services. So if you call that number, that's how individuals mainly get into the programs.
And Sharon, for your office?
For our office, our Aging and Disability Resource Centers try not to turn anyone away. Because our directive is a person-centered, no wrong door, is that if you call us, we're going to turn over every rock and look under it and search and try and find the services that you need. Now, it's true that not all services are out there, not all resources are available. And sometimes we have to say that. But when we're at that point, it's because we have already searched. And we do serve the citizens of Louisiana because we are paid with your tax dollars. But we also serve people outside of the state if they have a loved one in the state that they're worried about.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we get a lot of calls from everywhere because their mom, their dad, their uncle, their brother lives here. But as far as who can call our number, anybody can call our number, and we will try and get them to the resource that they need.
Would you give us that number so folks
Sure.
can take that number down?
Look, if you pick up this brochure at the desk, on the back, it's broken down by the regions. For those of you at home, the statewide number is 877-340-9100, and that'll come directly to my desk, and I'll get you to the right phone number for your area and for the services in your area.
Well, thank you. We appreciate having that direct number. It's always great to have a direct number, so thank you so very much for that. And I want to remind you that we are going to take your questions, so please go ahead and get those questions together, and don't be shy. Go ahead and step up to the mic. I think, April, you're making your way over here, and she's going to get the questions started for us, and we appreciate that. So just whenever you get your question together, come on up, and we will go ahead and take your questions. So, Miss April, tell us what your question is today. Got it?
Hello, my name is April Dunn, and I'm the Vice Chair of the DD Council, and my question is, why medicine is so cost so much for people, for elderly.
That's a good question. Thank you so much. And that's one I'm sure that you all get quite a bit, the cost of prescription medication. I mean, it is high. It's very high. How do you help with that?
Okay, we have the Louisiana Senior RX program, and people with disabilities and seniors can call us. They can get to it with that same number that I gave you before. And the people in our Louisiana Senior RX are all certified by the Senior Health Information Program, SHIP, another state agency that we work really well with, and we are certified by them. We can help them find the correct Medicare Part D program for them. Every year, you need to check and make sure that you're on the right program. Just because you like that program and it's been kind to you, it doesn't mean it's still matching your medicines, and it's still working with your doctor and your pharmacy. And that's why we have it locally. They call, they give us what medicines they're taking, what doctors they're seeing, what pharmacists they use, and we help pick out the top 3 plans that fit their needs, and then send them the information on those plans so that they can pick the right plan for them and what's going on in their life. Also, they call us before they get into the donut hole. Sometimes they wait till they get in the donut hole, and it's going to take us a good 6 weeks to 2 months to get the meds started. So we really need you to call us before you get in the donut hole or the gap or whatever you call it. Or if you get a new prescription that's not on the formulary for your prescription program, for your Medicare Part D program or your insurance that you have, it's not covered. And what we do is we have relationships with the different manufacturing companies. Some of them work with us better than others do. But we work with them to try and get your meds for you at either free or reduced cost. And it's something that they do to help the people who take their meds. And it's also something that helps them with their taxes. I mean, we're all looking to help each other here.
Right.
So, but we have, at the last printing of this, we have gotten $218,032,961 worth of free or low-cost medications for people in Louisiana. through
Proof that it
program.
works, proof
It
that
does,
what
it
you're doing works. And I think it's so important, the information that you shared at the very beginning is for people to check every year, because I would imagine there are many cases where people are caught off guard or caught by surprise, thinking that everything is covered as it was before, and lo and behold, some new policy has been implemented and it's not the same. So that's very, very important. Thank you for that. Yes.
And I want to say that the area agencies on aging and the councils on aging, they have trainings on Medicare, and they also assist the individuals in filling out the documents that they need to fill out in order to switch to a different program.
They really help with the low cost. We have several programs that will help you with your Medicare Part D. I know it's called MIPA, but it's the low-cost subsidy and the Medicare Savings Program. That's the one I wasn't pulling up. And the Medicare Savings Programs. And so we can help you look at that and see if you can qualify with some help for those programs.
Okay, fantastic. Please give us your name and your question.
Hi, and thank you all for being here. And my name is Jean Abity. I'm with the Advocacy Center. And Tara, I think my question is more for you. And I wanted to ask, I know that there's been a regression in the amount of money that's being put toward home and community-based services. And I know it's not funding overall because funding has increased for institutional care. So I'm wondering what your office is doing to try to rebalance that system so that people can access the home and community-based services that they really want.
Can you share a personal story about why this is so important to you?
Why it's so important to me, because I have worked with many, many people who don't have the opportunities for home and community-based services and end up in institutions. And it's a story that I'm really tired of, and I want to see it change for them.
Thank you. Appreciate your question. Tara?
Thanks, John, for the question. This is a very difficult question, and I think we're in an unfortunate financial state in our state of Louisiana. But I can't speak on behalf of Dr. Gee, but I can say that the Secretary has charged me with attempting to see what we can do to transition people out of possibly institutions and shift them back into home and community-based services as much as possible. We have requested in our budget requests the last several years additional waiver slots and funding for home and community-based services, even from the provider level side for payment as well as additional slots. It's just the financial climate that we're in has not been successful in being able to fund those.
Right.
But we are trying every avenue that we can, and the department is committed to do everything that we can possible to be able to do that shift back into more home and community-based rather than institutional care.
I think this is an area and an issue that points to the fact that it's so important for us to get involved and to get engaged and have conversations with our state lawmakers who are in positions to help us when it comes to the funding issues that we're facing. And I am imagining that you are involved and engaged in those kinds of conversations. Would that be accurate?
Yes, very
Yeah.
much so. And I mean, to speak to that, as we know, we are in a funding problem, but we know that funding has increased in other places, so it is problematic. And then I would, as a follow-up question, I know that the department has looked at managed long-term services and supports as a possible way to help rebalance that system to give people these opportunities to be at home. And I'm just wondering what is happening with that.
And as you answer that question, help educate all of us about this and give us a little more of the background behind it.
Okay. Managed long-term supports and services, known as MLTSS, would be a managed care model for the elderly population and aging and elderly population. The department has looked at it, is continuing to look at it. There has been a couple of pieces of legislation that has been out some didn't pass. There's a resolution, a House resolution that has, that did pass in the most recent session that is requiring the department to look into the possibility of what we can do for managed long-term care, trying to see that if this is correct, the most appropriate method for that population. And some people are familiar with the managed care portion of what we call Healthy Louisiana or the previous Bayou Health Plans. This would be a similar concept for the adult aging population.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yes, your name and your question, please.
Yes, I'm Natalie Jaro. I'm the CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank of Greater New Orleans and Acadiana, and a member of the Louisiana Food Bank Association. We serve, from our food bank, more than 40,000 seniors every year through a variety of organizations. So let me start by thanking you for your amazing commitment to seniors and their care. But what we're hearing from our seniors is a lot of concern. A lot of disconnection between the various ways they can access food, some of that having to do with the limited resources available to them, the need for more fresh produce and the kind of diet that will help them, and of course the incredibly long waiting lists of seniors, as you mentioned, that can't even access services at this point because there just isn't enough for them. At the food banks, we stand ready to help, but would like to have your advice to point us in the direction of how we can have that conversation as a private nonprofit to kind of help stretch those, those food resources further, use all our donated food to help and reach more seniors.
Well, and we want to say thank you for your commitment and the work that you all are doing too, because you're doing great work. We appreciate it.
Community does it.
So, an answer, please.
The Councils on Aging, they last year, they provided 4.8 million meals to the seniors, and that's the population that the Councils on Aging serve, is the 60 years or older, their spouses, and also caregivers of those seniors. And the 4.8 million is not only at the senior centers, but it's also homebound individuals. And I know that they have farmers market, they'll help sign individuals up for the farmers market to get a discount, and you could contact some of the Councils on Aging and they could work, you guys could work together and get the seniors fed.
So she could
Yes.
contact the Council on Aging's in her area
Her area,
directly.
Yeah, all over the state, yes.
And we do
yes.
work with the Councils on Aging very closely in disaster response, like the floods of August. We actually help the Council on Aging up here when their Meals on Wheels vendor, that's not the technical name, but their meal
Meals on-
provider
yes,
actually
that's
went down
Yes.
for a little while. It would just be great to kind of consolidate and find some way as a state we could talk about all those resources, because we know there's a lot more we could do to help. We have a commercial kitchen at our facility, so we can actually prepare meals. We know there are a lot of seniors that can use that kind of service that we can't reach yet.
And we're all working together. I got a call yesterday from someone that had just, a senior citizen who had just gotten out of the hospital, and she called the Council on Aging, and they have a waiting list right now for meals. Now, that to me is so sad, because we know that all of us are voting to help our seniors and people with disabilities at least be sure to have enough food to eat. But I hear from people all the time who are having to choose between taking their medicines or getting something to eat.
Right.
But when I called the Aging and Disability Resource Center in the area where she lived, they did have an MOU with a United Way. And so if they just got out of the hospital, they would supply them with like 2 weeks of food paid for by the United Way, called Mom's Meals. And that was a new one for me, even because every district of the state, they have different arrangements with different people in the area that they work with.
And it sounds to me like you're talking about that kind of a gap, that an organization like yours and others across the state are willing to step in and to fill.
More, and we know that the more we can find out what the need is, the more we can do.
The more that you can do. Have you contacted the Councils on Aging in your areas?
We've talked about setting up statewide meetings, and we've talked about the various programs that seniors can because it would be great if the senior could come to one spot, get their hot meals, their produce, their box of commodities. There's just so many ways we can help seniors.
Right.
more effectively.
So it's great to hear that those conversations have already started. The next thing is putting them into action, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Yes, come on up and ask your question. And give us your name.
Steve Kaufman, I'm from here in Baton Rouge. And my question is, when an individual who is developmentally disabled and is 65, which agency is responsible for providing that person with services? And let me give you the personal example of myself. Up until age 27, I was probably developmentally disabled, even though there was no DD Act. At 27, I got a job. I started making money. I was able to afford a lot of assistance. And now that I'm 65, well, I guess since I was 27 when I got my job, I'm no longer developmentally disabled because I don't have three characteristics or three qualifiers that make me developmentally disabled, even though I was born disabled. So now that I'm 65, who do I look to for my assistance with services?
And do you mind sharing what sort of services you're looking for?
Well, right now, I'm still working, but there'll come a point in time when physically I won't be able to.
Right.
So I would assume I get some services now in assisting with my care around the house, and dishes, laundry, things like that. And I'll probably need even more of that as I get older.
Great question. Yes, Tara?
For the Louisiana Department of Health and being age 65, you would come through the Office of Aging and Adult Services would be a starting point. You would call the options line, and we would start from that point. And we would try to fit you into the right program that is most appropriate for your setting. And then if for some reason you're not eligible for Medicaid or for Medicare type services that we can help with, then we would reach out to our sister agencies and see what resources that we have. Because we actually lean on the same resources as both groups here. So we try to buddy up together and make sure that you get all the avenues that you can.
So it would be Tara's office that he should call today,
Yeah.
this week, next
Yeah.
week, to go ahead and start having that conversation. Yes, go ahead.
To follow up on that, does it matter whether I'm already receiving DD services or not?
It can. That's why I don't want to give a hard answer to that. That's why you need to call, and we will fit you into the most appropriate services. It just
Steve.
depends on the situation.
Don't forget to call us anyway, even if you get all the medical stuff taken care of, because there's your senior center near you. And that's going to come under our Council on Aging, and that's where you're going to get your social interaction with people your age, and you can go and play cards and go on little trips, go fishing, stuff like that with people your own age. So even if you get your medical needs complete in one phone call, don't forget to call again and get those social needs out, because you don't need to be staying home. You need to go have a congregate meal at the senior center. Yay, senior
And
center.
another thing that the senior citizen centers provide is, I used to have a job responsibility of going and doing outreaches and talking about legal services and how they can access those, and also talking about things like living wills and other sorts of information that are really important to people who are elderly.
And Steve, we know you are a lawyer, and trust me, I know it's going to be social, but we're also going to ask you to volunteer and help the citizens there with the things that they need.
They're going to put you to work, Steve.
Well, I am not a lawyer, I just play one on TV.
Yes, right. Won't work.
Thank you so much for that question. I'm so glad that you brought that up because it's very important because we're talking about treating and helping the whole person.
The whole person.
Every aspect.
Lead
It's
their
so
best life.
important. It's so important. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, your name and your question.
Jacqueline Blaney. I am here as the coordinator of the Louisiana Supported Living Network. We are an association that advocates for in-home support for persons with developmental disabilities and persons living longer. And as you all know, one of the services that supports people living longer is called personal attendant services, personal care services sometimes. And as mentioned earlier, there are thousands, I understand 30,000 people at least, who are primarily waiting on that particular service. We know from research that that is a service that basically saves the state money. It's also a service that supports people to continue to contribute to their communities, continue to have relationships with their families, and continue to be a part of their communities. So I think the value of personal care services is obvious to everyone. What's not obvious to everyone is why that particular service takes a back seat, if you will, to institutional services that receive more funding. So my question is, how do we as a state, how does this administration plan to work harder to shift those resources to the services that work for people, to the services that people want, away from those facility-based and institutional services that those 30,000 people are hanging on and waiting for? What is this administration's plan to address that?
Thank you so much for your question. And who wants to take that?
I'll take that. I think the question was for the Department of Health, and not only for the Office of Aging, but as a department. Again, as I stated a while ago, it's the financial climate. We do, as a department, support the personal care services in the home. We support home and community-based services, but until the state can find funding to increase that service level, I don't have an answer, but that is one of our top priorities.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You are one of my unsung heroes. Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question? The follow-up question is, and I don't know if you can comment on the U.S. Justice Department's involvement in the state with findings related to the inadequacy of services to people in nursing homes.
And for anyone watching, the state of Louisiana has received a letter from Department of Justice in December of 2016 that indicated that the state could be out of compliance of about 4,000 individuals with serious mental health illness being in nursing homes rather than in the home or the community. I cannot speak to other than what the letter states. It's under legal, I'm not sure I'm saying the right term because I'm not an attorney, legal consideration or legal negotiation of what's going on. So that's about all I can talk about.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your name, please, and your question.
My name is Melvin Richard. I own a provider agency out of Opelousas. The question I have is, why is it so difficult for these people with obvious disabilities to get assistance in personal care?
Can you give us an example of what you're talking about?
Once we make the phone calls to the state and they come out and do initial assessment, oftentimes these people who come and do these initial assessments are so rude to us, so rude to the providers, to the clients. They're really not compassionate with us, and so many of them are refused. Their services are refused. And we have to go over and through so many things to try to get these people services. It seems like we are being penalized for trying to help people with disabilities that obviously need help.
Yeah.
I mean, my heart get broken so many times. My heart has been broken so many times by trying to help people and trying to do for people, and they come and act like when they get to our assessment area, oftentimes, I don't know if everybody experiences this, but I experience it. I feel like I'm being treated like a criminal.
How long have you been in this?
I've been in this business for 8 years.
For 8 years.
For 8 years.
And I can hear the passion. I can tell it's something that means a lot to you. Thank you for your question. We appreciate it. And I know this is probably something that you have heard before. So how do you address this question?
First thing, I would like to apologize if you felt like any assessors have been rude, because that is not how my office nor the department would like anyone to act. We thrive on professionalism, so anytime that occurs, please let me know. You can call me directly. Anyone out there, the office number is 225-219-0223. As well, the assessment, when the Office of Aging goes out to do an assessment to determine what level of services or if an individual qualifies to meet a service level, we use it's an MDS assessment. It's a medical type assessment that is actually a national and international assessment that's used. So it's something that is well used across the U.S. and the nation, and internationally. And throughout that assessment, the client or the recipient that is possibly to receive services has to be at a level that capacity that can actually answer those questions. And sometimes we go in and the client may be too medicated where we don't think we're getting the appropriate answers, and we really need to hear the answers from that individual. So it takes us to reschedule and go back and to do another assessment. Now, if an individual does not meet on the MDS assessment, there's always appeal rights. There's always, for any time someone is denied or reduced services, there's appeal rights they can go through. And if they appeal, their services are never reduced at that time. And also, you can call back at any time to get reassessed. If your situation, you feel like you've had a change in health status, you can call for a reassessment at any time.
And is that information available to someone like this gentleman who would need, it sounds like, access to that kind of information?
Yes, it is. He should have a provider manual that talks about all of the appeal rights and what the clients should be able to do. And if he doesn't, we can do that for any provider out there.
I'm very familiar with the appeal process, and I've appealed numerous times to where we even have a judge over the phone, and the results are never in favor of the client. The judge I have never experienced not one time where the judge ruled in favor of the client. Always against the client. I have a sister that have services where they came in and took hours away from her. She can't walk. She's been suffering with obesity, and she's practically bedridden. And how you gonna come in and take somebody that's bedridden, take away their hours?
Yeah, and of course, we can't speak to that situation because we don't have all the details of that particular situation. But if you want someone to talk with you afterwards, we certainly can do that. We appreciate your question because I know there are probably others who are watching, maybe even in this room, who maybe have been through the same sort of thing and need that kind of information on how they can access if they have a complaint or something along those lines. So if you'd like, we can talk to you afterwards and get some particulars so that we can kind of get to the better understanding of what's going on.
I just want to say one more thing, is that over the 8 years that I've been, 9 years that I've been doing this, I've seen so many companies have gone out of business. So many companies have been, over half of these companies no longer exist, and so many people have lost their services. I really don't know. Anybody know the numbers of people in the last 8 years that have really lost their services? And a lot of these people, no way that many people that are disabled qualifies to lose their services.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yes. You have a question? Yes.
Hi, I'm Bambi Palazola. I'm with the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs, and I have a question for Tara. Maybe someone else can answer it. But if someone who is an aging population, they had to go into a nursing facility, a nursing home, to get care, is there any way that they can get a waiver and be able to come back into the home? I often hear people say like that's kind of the last stop for them, but is there some options for those people who have gone into those nursing facilities?
Thank you, Mamie, for the question. Yes, and I failed to mention that under the waiver, even though there's a waiting list for the community offers, if you are in an institution, you can get a priority waiver slot to come out, and my office actually goes out and helps transition the individual to their home. You just call that Louisiana options number from the nursing home when we make the offers. We try to reach out to as many individuals as possible. So that is one of the ways that we're trying to move the needle back into home and community-based services, by reaching individuals that are into institutions and can and have the ability to move back home with services.
Sharon, you wanted to jump in there?
No, that's just one of their new initiatives that we are just, I think all of us are so excited to be able to offer that option to people when they call, you know, that there is this initiative that if you are in the nursing home, you go up in the list to get that waiver. Isn't that true? That's the way it works.
There are 3 priority waivers of availabilities. One is if you're in an institution, one if it's an adult protective services or elderly protective services case where we think the safety and welfare of an individual is at risk, and the third one is if you're ALS, diagnosed with ALS with a lifetime short lifespan. That is another priority, because we know ALS declines so quickly, and you do need services in the home, and it's an abrupt type of medical condition.
Yeah, well, I knew that this time was going to fly by, and it certainly is. We have just about maybe 10 minutes left, so I want to encourage those of you, if you still have questions, to go ahead and come up to the mic so that we can get those questions and get the answers for you. So as we're closing in on the hour here, and I don't know if we touched on My Place, Louisiana. Can you talk a little bit about that? And one of the things that you have notated here for me is that the money follows the person.
Correct. The My Place, or also known as Money Follows the Person, is a transition effort that the CMS, actually the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare, which actually helps fund the Medicaid program as well as Medicare program, actually gives us an increased rate of federal participation if we transition individuals out of an institution back into the community for 365 days. Upon that transition back into the community, we actually get an enhanced rate to be able to help provide services to that individual. So we call it kind of Money Follows the Person is kind of the grant that it's under. So we have been doing that for quite some time, and we've transitioned over about 1,400 individuals at this point.
About 1,400.
1,400 individuals from an institution, mainly nursing homes, back into the community under this program. But we're also kicking off and trying to do more transitions out of institutions, whether it be any form of an institution, and into the home and into the community, so that the individual can contribute.
Yeah, and Sharon, the Aging and Disability Resource Centers, those are all across the state?
Yes, it's a statewide program. So are the senior RX programs. And also, while we're talking about the nursing homes and transition, she said elderly protective services.
Yes.
Elderly protective services are at the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs, and so are the ombudsman. So if you think your relative or friend is being mistreated in a nursing home, they have rights even in the nursing home. And they can call us and get in contact with an ombudsman, and they will go and interview that client by themselves and mediate with that nursing home. And also, if you have someone who is being abused, call. We have the elderly line at the Governor's Office on Elderly Affairs, and the adults would be with Tara.
Okay.
And so, and, Child Protective Services, if they're smaller, this isn't just for, just, step in. Bullying is wrong at any age.
I want to add that inside on the Office of Aging, we have the Adult Protective Services, which is 18 through 59 number, but we also have listed the Elderly Protective Services, which is over 60 in the brochure, so that, and either.
Is that the right number?
That is the correct number, the new number. But if you call either office, we are in constant communication with each other, so the person will be served.
Yeah. And before we leave, I want to talk a little bit about caregivers. It's so important that we talk about caregivers, and there are services available for caregivers, because, these are people that work hard, and they give and give and give until they can't give anymore. What services are available for the caregivers?
The Councils on Aging, they have in-home respite care, so they will come in and give the caregiver a break so that they can collect themselves or get go grocery shopping, run errands that they may need to do. And it's just to give the caregiver a break when they sit, and there's also sitter services. They'll come and sit with the caregiver's client and help them. There's also homemaker services where they'll come in and do light housekeeping for the elderly person and the caregiver. There's also home-delivered meals, and they also do chore. The Councils on Aging have this chore where, like in the summertime, they could come and mow the lawn, for the senior.
And I think it's so important because sometimes caregivers might feel guilty, about taking a break and taking care of themselves, but they really, really do need to do that, right, Sharon?
We counsel them all the time in how important they are. But if you don't take care of the caregiver, there won't be anyone to give the care. And so you need to not only pat yourself on the back for the good work that you do, but you need to take care of yourself. And we have, when you call us, we also try and steer them towards support groups for the disease or the disability that they're assisting with, so that they have friends and other caretakers to talk to.
Okay, and I think we're going to get in one last question. Your name and your question, please.
My name's Nell Hahn, and I have a question about permanent supportive housing. I know that a lot of times people who are in institutions are kind of stuck there because even if they can get services in the community, they can't find housing that's adequate for them. I know you have a program on here. I got a few questions in here. Are there actually any opportunities for permanent supportive housing that are actually available right now?
Okay, let's take your first question.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, there are. And people transitioning out get to the top of the list, have a priority. Again, as funding is short, we also have a shortage of housing, but we have permanent supportive housing, and we also have 811 housing, which now has moved above the I-10 basically, because permanent supportive housing was really after Hurricane Katrina down below in the GO zone area, if you want to say. But now we have 811 housing up in the north, and we do transition people quite a bit into permanent supportive housing. We are trying to do initiatives to see how we can expand those programs. We're working with Louisiana Housing Authority as well to see what other options available out there that we can possibly do some, and I'm not that type of expert, but do some type of financing specialty arrangements to get additional housing. But yes, that is available for individuals.
And your second question?
Well, that was my second question, was what's being done to, because I know there's been a shortage, and what's being done, and if there's any opportunities for us to advocate for more of that housing, how we could do that. And to develop, how do you get on the waiting list or on the list to get permanent support?
You call the number that's in this brochure, and that one of the specialists or tenant managers, service managers, will put you on the list and try to provide services. We are, and I don't want to say the wrong number, I think it's around 1,800 to 2,000. We're hoping units will be available within the next 18 to 24 months. So that's a huge influx of housing availability for Louisiana. But yes, anyone, reach out to me and we can try to work with, and HUD and Louisiana Housing Authority, they're really the ones that manage how many housing units is available. We actually just put people into the units out there. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. And we are just about out of time, so I'm going to ask you guys for closing comments and also to share a good number or a good web address that you would like to leave our folks here with. And we'll start with you. Yes.
Well, the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs web address is www.goea.la.gov. And if you go onto the website, in the right bottom corner, you'll see where there is an area agency on aging and a council on aging directory, so you can locate your local agencies that can assist you with services. Great, yes.
One closing comment that I want to say, we had an hour and we've kind of flew by, but there's an abundance of information that we haven't spoken about. So I do ask everyone to reach out to all of our websites and do call. One thing that Office of Aging that actually we also have is we have a helpline. So if you're a senior or someone with a disability, you can call our helpline and we can try to get you to the right person and direct you to what service level you may need. And we do an array of services seeking for them So, and our helpline is on the brochure, but it's 1-866-758-5035. And our web address is www.ldh.la.gov/OAAS. But if you could just get to LDH, then you can find us on there, and you can find all the services under LDH.
Thank you for doing that, because for those folks who are watching online, they don't have the brochure, so I appreciate that. Sharon, your closing comments.
Real quick, you can find local services by going to LouisianaAnswers.com. And you can search by the area of the state that you live in, by your zip code. You can find applications along the top, and along the left side, you can find a list of the Aging and Disability Resource Centers and the Senior RX programs and news. You can just click on news and see the latest news that we've posted. But we welcome your comments, and we welcome you to call.
Well, thank you all so very much for your time, for all of the information, for taking the questions. Sharon, Teresa, and Tara, we appreciate it. We appreciate all of you for the good work that you are doing. We hope that you've gotten some good information that you can pass along. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next time. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.